Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Acting Essex County Prosecutor Robert Lorino. Today, joining me are FBI Special Agent in charge of Newark, Michael Ward, Essex County Executive Joseph DiVincenzo, Newark Mayor Cory Booker, Newark Police Director Gary McCarthy, Newark Police Detective Lieutenant David Wood, Essex County Chief Assistant Prosecutor Keith Harvest, Essex County Chief Assistant Prosecutor Thomas Fennelly, Essex County Chief of Detectives Anthony Ambrose, Essex County Detective Captain Michael DeMayo, and Essex County Detective Lieutenant Earl Graves. We are here today to announce the arrest of 5 juveniles and 3 adults who we believe are largely responsible for the spike in carjackings in Essex County during the holiday season in November and December of 2010. Additional arrests were also made last night of another juvenile and 4 adults. They have not been formally charged yet, but we expect that to happen today. While there has been an increase in carjackings in Newark, there have also been increases in crime in most of the major cities of this county and in this state. Working with our state, federal, and local partners in law enforcement in early December, we developed a strategy to attack this problem. On December 23rd, we had a break in a case when 2 juveniles were arrested. Our investigation has revealed that there are 3 separate groups of juveniles and young adults involved in numerous carjackings. Armed with handguns and rifles, they have confronted innocent citizens. In the case of juveniles, we have decided to make an application to the court to try them as adults. The juveniles, who range in age from 15 to 17, recklessly and without regard for human life, brandish weapons, creating a clear danger to the community. We did not make this decision to waive these juveniles up to adult court lightly. All the juveniles involved have had prior contact with the law, which includes cases involving car theft and eluding the police by automobile. It is obvious that their prior contact that these juveniles had with the juvenile justice system did not deter their criminal conduct. They had every chance to reform and lead productive lives, but refused to do so. Every year in Essex County, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office charges nearly 3,000 juveniles. We carefully review each and every case. Only in those cases involving the most serious crimes do we make an application to have a minor tried as an adult. In these carjacking cases, based on the serious nature of the crimes committed, we believe these juveniles should be tried as adults. A number of the juveniles were armed. Juveniles forcibly removed from their vehicles at gunpoint harmless citizens. In one incident, a shot was fired, but no one was injured. These juveniles will not be permitted to continue to terrorize the community. Fortunately, we have not seen the degree of violence that was present in the carjacking sprees of the 1990s. Today, we believe that many of those engaging in carjackings are doing so because of improved anti-theft devices, making it more difficult to steal an unattended car. Consequently, car thieves are attacking drivers in their vehicles. This is serious because when carjackers confront an individual, the likelihood that could result in injury or even the loss of life increases substantially. Our state legislature recognized the seriousness of this type of offense. That is why in 1993, when they passed the carjacking statute, they set the maximum imprisonment at 30 years. If a juvenile is tried as an adult, that juvenile will now be facing up to 30 years in state prison. As a juvenile, in juvenile court, that juvenile would only be facing up to 4 years in a juvenile facility. For those adults who will use juveniles to assist them in committing these crimes, they will be facing an additional 10 years imprisonment on top of the 30 years for carjacking. In the recent case of a carjacking that we had in West Orange, New Jersey, that led to the death of an innocent bystander during a pursuit of that carjacker into East Orange, that defendant will be facing felony murder charges as well as carjacking charges that could land him in prison for up to 60 years. I will be turning these cases over to trial to a newly created Special Prosecutions Unit consisting of the best trial attorneys in our office. Our goal will be to assure that justice in these matters are both swift and severe. I'll now turn this over to Police Director Gary McCarthy.
Thank you, Prosecutor. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to start by explaining that this is not a new phenomenon in Newark. It's something that I was troubled to find when we first got here. What has occurred, though, is we had a severe spike recently in December, and as the prosecutor mentioned, under his leadership, working with the U.S. Attorney's Office, we pulled together a task force of federal and local law enforcement. As a result, that's the investigative component. There's a second component to that. Every single night, the Newark Police Department is putting out a number of officers, which I actually don't want to give out, but it's upwards of 20 officers virtually every single night, deployed to the areas where carjackings are most prevalent. Obviously, we're tracking where the incidents occur, where the vehicles are recovered, and we're trying to interdict and prevent them in the first place and then try and recover them afterwards. Results of that have been really, really encouraging. The prosecutor mentioned just a couple of arrests. We've made upwards of 16 carjack-related arrests. And I say upwards of that because, you know what, we've picked up a couple of kids in a stolen car with a gun. We didn't catch them actually doing a carjacking, but guess what? They had a gun, they had a stolen car. The likelihood is that fits the pattern that they would go out and do another carjack. These prosecutions that Prosecutor Lorino was talking about are critical to our success, because if there's not some sort of a standard that's set where people understand that if you get involved in this type of activity, it's going to be problematic for you. If the U.S. Attorney doesn't take some of these cases and send people to places like Idaho to do their imprisonment, if the prosecutor does not upgrade some of these juveniles, this is going to be an ongoing phenomenon. We've made a number of arrests, and we have a couple of charts here just to show you. If you look, this is a week by week. This is where it kind of hit the top. That's when we put together our task force, made some arrests, and it came down. Last week we had a spike, and coincidentally, just last night, we made a very significant arrest. We arrested 4 adults and a juvenile in a carjacked vehicle with a firearm, and recovered 2 more vehicles that were carjacked when we got into the vehicle pursuit with these guys and ended up apprehending them a short time later. There's no doubt that these processes are effective in what we're doing. This is how crime works. When we get a problem, we analyze it, we figure out what to do about it, we come up with solutions, and we work collaboratively. I really want to acknowledge the work of Lieutenant Dave Wood from the Newark Police Department. He is the head of the Carjack Task Force. He's working very closely with Captain Mike DeMeo from the prosecutor's office. And I want to acknowledge our federal partners, particularly the U.S. Attorney and the FBI, who are working very, very closely with us. And I got to tell you something. One thing that we find is when we make an arrest and we take somebody who we've arrested for a debriefing and we take them past Green Street, we take them past the prosecutor's office, so we take them down to the FBI building and we sit them down and we start talking to them. Many times we get information that we wouldn't have previously gotten because the bad guys know what federal time means. The bad guys also know what it means to wave juveniles up and try them as adults. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is introduce Mike Ward. He's the SAC of the Newark Field Office of the FBI, a great partner, and I got to tell you, I've never seen better law enforcement cooperation than we're experiencing here. It's a credit to Prosecutor Lorino, it's a credit to Paul Fishman, the U.S. Attorney, and it's really a credit to Mike Ward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. I think it's important to note that even in the best of times, that there is always a certain level of criminal activity that is ongoing. And the challenge of law enforcement is to keep that criminal activity as low as possible and to keep it as low a baseline as can possibly be enforced. And what happens is in the enforcement of laws, when we're out performing our duties, that you run into situations where there will be spikes in crime, there will be trends. And what happens is when you have certain criminal activity that trends upwards, then you come together and you work collaboratively. And a lot of times that happens on an ad hoc or an informal basis. But there are certain crimes that occur that are of such nature that they require a greater response. And in the terms of carjacking, you know, the word terrorist or terrorism or terrorizing people in the community sometimes gets overused, but that's truly what happens in these instances. That when people are unable to drive from point A to point B without having someone come and stop them and put a gun in their face, then it does terrorize the community. And the Newark Police Department, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, has put together an outstanding plan. The FBI is assigning resources to this task force, that we're working collaboratively. We're working with them not only from an investigative standpoint, but also from a technical support standpoint to address this problem, to try to get the crime rate down back to that baseline, back as low as can possibly be. And we're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And what happens is once these individuals are identified and they're arrested, a decision will be made as far as what is the best interest of what is the most effective prosecution. Will it be a federal prosecution or will it be a state prosecution? And we'll also look at some of these juveniles, and we'll look at the possibility of being able to have them tried as adults in the federal system. And if they are tried as adults in the federal system, they're looking at anywhere between 8 and 30 years in jail, and they're also looking at being transferred out of the New Jersey region and being assigned to a prison elsewhere in the country, so that it removes them from family and friends and from their support base, if you will, here locally. I think it's very important that we address this crime problem, that we do it as aggressively as possible, because the sheer nature of it, the carjacking, the effect it has on a community and the quality of life is so important. So we're committed to working jointly on this. We feel like that we've really made some good progress. At present, we have one individual which I believe has been accepted for federal prosecution. We have 3 or 4 other cases that are currently being reviewed by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and a decision will be made. But the strong partnerships, not only at the street level, at the investigative level, but also at the prosecutive level here, we think will make us successful as we move forward and address this crime problem. Thank you.
We'll next hear from our Essex County Sheriff Armando Fontoro.
Thank you very much. It's always good to have the mighty federal government working with us, because they bring so many resources, and Michael Ward is just a terrific person to work with, so we welcome that development. Like Gary said, you know, when they go away from down there, they go, what does I always say, Gary? Far, far away. They're not in touch with the homeboys. They're gone forever. I think people understand that, and that in itself is can be a good deterrent. We have significant amount of resources working with this task force that the prosecutors put together, and Gary McCarthy, and we'll continue to redirect additional resources, because this is a very, very serious problem, and one that we need to eradicate as quickly as we possibly can. People need to move about, as Michael said, without fear, be able to go to the grocery store, get milk and bread for their children, and take care of their families. And we're going to make sure that that happens as quickly as possible. This is not a Newark problem. This is a New Jersey problem. This is an American problem. This weekend, Chief Ambrose and I were talking before, from the Rock and the state police, the level of violence, just a particular weekend, from Jersey City to Camden, was absolutely astronomical. If all of you go back and check the numbers and what happened just this one weekend, it is absolutely horrendous. It's unacceptable. As a society, we must do something about it. This task force will help us address it here at this level. Thank you.
And we'll now hear from Newark Mayor Cory Booker.
First of all, I want to just give a notice to what's happening. I've been in mayor now for over 4 years, and I have not seen this kind of strength, this kind of a tactical coalition, and the force that they have brought to bear on this unacceptable problem. We have small groups of individuals, very small groups, who are perpetrating increasing terror within our city with these carjacking operations. This is unacceptable. In December, we came together with what is an unprecedented coalition to attack this problem, and we are seeing now substantive results. Last night, as Director McCarthy said, was an incredible example of that. First and foremost, in the streets of Newark, the residents need to know we have large teams, the best of Newark police officers in undercover vehicles out hunting for these criminals. They may get away with one. They may get away with 2, but you will be found and captured. And last night's great police work was yet another example of what's extraordinarily happening out in our streets right now. But then we've got even more going. We've got a partnership of investigatory individuals that are the best of law enforcement, led at the county level by Anthony Ambrose and his heroic team, partnering with our team at the Newark level and others. We have the ability now to start linking these cases to other jobs, breaking them, and making more progress in undermining the individuals, the small group of individuals that seek to unleash this kind of terror within Essex County. Then you add on top of that the prosecutorial strength that has come about because of our county prosecutor and his, as I said in the back room, really heroic efforts here to make sure that we are sending a clear message that if you do these crimes in Essex County, you will be punished to the fullest and farthest extent of the law. If you are a juvenile that has a clear case of doing this, he is now seeking to push these people to be tried as adults. And if you are adults, especially adults involved with juveniles as we saw last night, you face up to 40 years in prison. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that that is the case. We want these people off the streets, we want them behind bars, and never to visit the terror on our streets again. So that coupled now with our federal support, the U.S. Attorney, coupled also with our incredible SAC of the FBI here in Newark specifically, has now given us even more strength to this coalition. And if you add that to the help we're getting from the state, as we had this weekend with the state helicopter up, giving us air support, we are going to drive this trend down. We are going to find the people responsible. We're going to put them behind bars and ensure that they stay there for a long, long time. I have deep gratitude from the county executive, the county sheriff, the state, the federal agencies for all of us coming together. What we were saying now is this is probably, as Anthony Ambrose mentioned, who has extensive experience working here in Essex County and Newark, probably one of the most profound coalitions that's come together, working together seamlessly on this problem. Understand this is unacceptable. We will drive these crimes out of our city. We will ensure the perpetrators are put in jail. We will restore peace and security to our streets. Thank you.
And before we take questions, we'll now hear from our county executive.
Thanks, Prosecutor. You know, standing behind me, we have the best of the best. For 9 years, I've served as Essex County Executive, and we've been in many, many situations when it comes to public safety. And myself and Mayor Booker, we're elected officials, but the men and women that represent this great county have done an outstanding job. Here in the county level, having a great prosecutor, Prosecutor Bob Lorino, and Sheriff Armando Vontour, and then to have our federal partners, you know, from Paul Fishman to Mike Ward, and working with the 22 municipalities. You know, what's happening here, what Sheriff said, is absolutely true. This carjacking is not just a Newark issue. It's not in Essex County. It's a state, but it's happening throughout the nation. And we have to work together, and they do an outstanding job, and they've been working together day one on this. I've attended many, many meetings with the prosecutor and the sheriff, bringing our 22 municipalities together and with a spirit of cooperation and doing what they do is to protect us all.